The film opens with a scene of a house engulfed in flames in the dead of night. Screams echo from inside, but outside, a little girl stands silently, watching everything gradually engulfed in fire. The scene shifts several years later, to a woman named Caitlin, a real estate lawyer. That day, a client comes to her seeking advice. Her name is Polly, an unemployed nanny struggling with a rising rent. Caitlin, using her professional skills, promises to help her negotiate with the landlord. During their conversation, Polly notices Caitlin's pregnant belly and advises her to stay home instead of going to work. However, Caitlin smiles and says she's fine. That afternoon, after work, she suddenly experiences abdominal pain and quickly goes into labor. Weeks later, Caitlin returned with her eldest daughter Emma and the newborn Rosie. The demands of working and raising children kept her incredibly busy, constantly trying to keep everything under control. One day, while shopping at the town market with her family, Caitlin unexpectedly ran into Polly. Seeing Caitlin's tired and stressed appearance, Polly offered to babysit. Remembering that Polly had previous experience as a nanny, Caitlin said she would consider it. Back home, she discussed it with her husband, Miguel, suggesting that hiring a nanny would make life easier. To be sure, Caitlin contacted Polly's previous family, who praised her diligence. The next day, Caitlin invited Polly to her home to begin the job. She gave her some basic instructions and specifically warned her not to give the baby formula because it contained a lot of sugar. After giving her thorough instructions, Polly began to integrate into the family's daily life. She also took very good care of the baby, which somewhat reassured Caitlin. Although outwardly cheerful, Caitlin had to take antidepressants every night because of her past experiences. In the following days, Polly's presence made the atmosphere in the house even more lively and cheerful. The girl's presence acted as a calming balm, helping Caitlin feel at ease and gradually come to regard the nanny as a member of the family. Whenever Polly had free time, she would take the two children to the park for a walk. She even gave Emma a cake and taught her how to make a lucky flower petal gesture with her fingers as a special symbol between the two of them. The next day, Caitlin personally went to the kitchen to cook some delicious dishes to entertain her friends who were visiting. While she and her husband were busy preparing, Polly unexpectedly approached and quietly mixed something into the food. That evening, Caitlin's friend Stuart and his girlfriend visited. Everything seemed normal until Polly announced that she would be quitting her job and leaving the city the next day because the cost of living was too high. This statement shocked Caitlin and filled her with anxiety, as she hadn't considered the possibility of shouldering the burden alone again. That night, the entire family suffered from food poisoning. Emma was rushed to the hospital in critical condition. Caitlin, distraught, blamed herself, believing she was responsible for everyone's predicament. However, Polly came to comfort and encourage her, listening to her troubles. The next day, Polly packed her belongings and left the house, saying goodbye to the family members before departing. Unbeknownst to them, she remained in her car, silently observing their lives. That evening, Caitlin spoke to her husband, saying she wanted Polly to live with them so she could help care for the children. Miguel objected, reminding her of her past experiences when Emma was born. She had gone through a crisis, smashing things and claiming she was being followed. He worried she might repeat that behavior if someone else lived with them. However, Caitlin insisted that things would be different this time. So, the next day, Caitlin invited Polly back to her family and arranged a small, well-equipped room for her in the backyard. It seemed things would be all right again. However, on days when everyone else had left the house, leaving only Polly and Josie, she quickly changed her attitude, ignoring the crying baby sitting on the floor without a second thought. In the following days, Caitlin noticed that Polly was no longer as cheerful and enthusiastic as before. She frequently responded curtly and looked at Caitlin with an unfriendly gaze. Things became tense one day when Caitlin found a bottle of formula in the trash can. She angrily confronted Polly, who was playing with Emma, saying she had warned her not to use that kind. Polly apologized and expressed remorse for not remembering. Before Caitlin could say anything more, Emma interrupted, telling her mother not to spoil their playtime. Hearing this, Caitlin suppressed her anger and left. That evening, upon returning from her run, she found her husband laughing and talking with Polly and a strange woman. Polly introduced her as Amelia, her best friend. Seeing her strange behavior made Caitlin a little worried, but she chose to remain silent. Late at night, unable to sleep, she accidentally walked through the living room and was startled to find Polly making love with Amelia. This sight left Caitlin flustered, and she quickly left. The next morning, feeling tired, she took some calming medicine, but after taking it, she felt restless and accidentally cut her hand while cooking. During lunch, when the whole family was gathered together, Emma unexpectedly said that she wanted to marry a woman someday. This statement stunned Caitlin, and her gaze unconsciously shifted to Polly. Polly remained calm, saying she was only explaining the different types of marriages nowadays to Emma. Miguel seemed open-minded, but Caitlin was angry, believing that Polly had instilled these ideas in her daughter. Emma, saddened, ran upstairs to her room, crying. Polly followed her. Back in the room, Caitlin said she didn't believe a 10-year-old could understand her own tendencies. Perhaps she had been influenced by Polly's words. However, Miguel argued that his wife was being too controlling. Their daughter was old enough to make her own decisions. After a while of calming down, Caitlin finally felt relieved. She went over and kissed Miguel, then performed the same actions Polly had done the night before. However, they didn't know that Polly was secretly replacing Caitlin's pills with a different kind outside. A few days later, on New Year's Eve, the whole family went out to watch the fireworks. Seeing her daughter happy with the maid helped Caitlin to ease her negative thoughts. It seemed like everything had returned to normal. But that very night, while washing dishes in the kitchen, Emma suddenly screamed, followed by smoke and sparks filling the hallway. After learning that Polly had given the firecrackers to the little girl, Caitlin was furious and couldn't control herself. She yelled at Polly and kicked her out of the house. That night, Miguel criticized his wife for overreacting, saying it was just an accident and she didn't need to make things worse. After hearing her husband's words, Caitlin decided to drive to where Polly was staying at an old motel in the suburbs. Seeing her upset and banging her head against the wall, Caitlin opened the door and apologized. Believing she had acted out of control, Polly approached and hugged Caitlin, a cunning smile on her face. The next morning, Caitlin met her close friend Stuart and recounted everything that had happened. He reassured her, saying she hadn't lost control and that her suspicions about Polly were entirely justified. Stuart offered to help her investigate the nanny, as he himself felt she was hiding something. That afternoon, Polly returned to her room and was startled to find Stuart there. He claimed he was just looking around at the house's architecture and quickly left. However, upon returning, Stuart secretly stole several personal items from the trash can in Polly's room. All of these were used for a DNA test to find her personal information. At the same time, Caitlin tried calling Rosanna, Polly's former employer. After obtaining her address, she immediately went to see her to verify the truth. Rosanna then revealed that Polly had never worked as a nanny before, lived in her car, and was a drug addict. She admitted that she had pretended to be the previous homeowner to speak well of her in order to help the girl have a stable life. Caitlin was stunned to learn the truth, believing that her lies had put her children in danger. She then went home and told Miguel the whole truth. But instead of siding with his wife, he became annoyed, saying that instead of taking care of the children, she had gone out alone in the middle of the night to investigate the identity of a maid. Meanwhile, Stuart, after checking Polly's DNA, discovered something unusual. He immediately texted Polly, asking her to come meet him to talk. That evening, when the girl appeared, Stuart showed her an article about the fire years ago that killed the entire family, with only one daughter surviving. At this point, the truth was revealed. Polly was that little girl. Her name wasn't Polly, she was actually Rebecca. And the person who set fire to the house years ago was none other than Caitlin, who used to live in the same town as Polly. After that incident, Caitlin changed her name and moved, starting a new life. However, Polly still couldn't forgive the person who had ruined her life. After years of searching, she found Caitlin's information and planned to approach her for revenge. Stuart sympathized with Polly and tried to comfort her, but she got up to excuse herself to go to the restroom. As Stuart approached the door, the girl suddenly lunged at him from behind, causing him to fall to the floor. In pain, Stuart tried to call 911, but unfortunately, Polly saw him. She coldly continued to hit the man repeatedly on the head until his face was completely disfigured. Caitlin, upon learning of the incident, immediately rushed to the hospital. Hearing the news of Stuart's death left Caitlin utterly devastated. Seeing the police present, she explained that it wasn't an accident. Stuart was investigating Polly's background, and she was the prime suspect. However, the officer remained indifferent, saying that was for the detectives, he was merely a field officer. That morning, Caitlin returned home to find Polly sitting with her husband and two children as if nothing had happened. Enraged, she yelled at Polly to leave the house immediately, then went inside and packed up Polly's belongings. Miguel tried to stop her, but upon seeing Polly holding Emma outside, Caitlin, in a fit of rage, pushed her down. In the ensuing chaos, she accidentally hit Emma, causing her nose to bleed. Seeing what she had done only deepened Caitlin's despair. A week after the incident, she was placed under house arrest by the authorities. Caitlin was living in a hotel room, suffering and taking antidepressants every day. However, one day, she noticed the number 34 written on the pill. Checking online, Caitlin was shocked to learn it wasn't an antidepressant but a stimulant. She realized that Polly was behind her recent headaches and insomnia. That afternoon, Caitlin went to the soccer field to ask her husband if she could see Emma for a few minutes. The little girl was still too frightened to approach her mother. Caitlin apologized, saying she had been too overbearing and hadn't understood her daughter's wishes. Emma then brought out an old newspaper article about the house fire from years ago, saying she found it in Polly's room. She hoped her mother could open up to the maid, as she had lost her family at a young age. However, when Caitlin saw the photo in the article, she understood everything. She immediately returned home and confronted Polly, admitting that she knew Polly was Rebecca from years ago. Caitlin apologized for causing the fire, explaining that Polly's father had abused her when he worked as a doctor at the clinic. She had tried to report it to the police, but no one believed her. Unable to bear it any longer, she set fire to his house. Caitlin then apologized, but Polly, enraged, claimed that Caitlin had stolen her childhood and stabbed her in the stomach with a piece of glass. The two then violently wrestled with each other. In her moment of weakness, Caitlin grabbed a nearby bowl and smashed it against Polly's head, sending her flying into the glass. Caitlin seized the opportunity, rushed into the room, grabbed Josie, and climbed into the car, intending to flee. However, Polly quickly chased after them, repeatedly smashing the car's windows with a hammer. At that moment, Emma and her husband arrived home and witnessed the scene. But before they could reach her, Caitlin accelerated, causing the car to crash into another vehicle nearby. The accident threw Polly onto the road. Caitlin and Emma then approached Polly, but due to her severe injuries, Polly could only move for a few minutes before passing away. Sometime later, Caitlin returned to her normal life. Although everything had passed, deep within her heart, the flame of guilt still burned, refusing to be extinguished. At this point, Emma has come to her sister's side and tells a story about a little girl named Rebecca. Emma then makes a lucky flower-shaped finger gesture, a familiar symbol Polly taught her. It's a metaphorical representation that even though the woman is dead, her image remains, deeply etched in the minds of the children. The movie ends here. Thanks for watching and see you in the next video.